Hey everyone, welcome back to Yellow Jacket Woodworking. Again, I'm Rob. So, if you watched my first video, right, I kind of gave you the 5 tools that I started off with that you should be able to handle any basic woodworking project. Well, here's a basic woodworking project that can immediately upgrade the look and feel of your kitchen. Now that is the noodle board. It is super simple. You can sell it. You see them being sold on Etsy and eBay for 100, 120 bucks. But I'm gonna tell you right now, you can make it for less than 50 just by yourself. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We got about 36 inches of 1x12 pine. Got it from Menards. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and cut those down to 29.5 inches long. And then we'll glue them up. And then we'll make our side rails that have our handles and everything like that. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and cut these down, get them in some clamps all glued up. If you don't have a miter saw like I have here, right, you can easily do this with a circular saw, and really if you need to, a jigsaw. Just won't be as clean, but hey, you'll still be able to get through it. Super simple project. Let's get down to it. So everyone says that there was the old adage of measure twice, cut once. I'm a fan of measure once, just make sure you get it right. So here we go again with 29.5 inches. Set that up. So I'm not sponsored by any particular brand that is in my shop. Again, it'd be a lot cooler if I was. But this Ryobi 10-inch sliding miter saw has been a great addition to the shop. Okay, so that's one panel down. Let's go ahead and knock the second one out. All right, again, 29.5 inches for the overall length. That is because most standard stoves are about 29.5 inches wide. And then because we're gonna be gluing them together, we're gonna cut them down or rip them to about 21.5 inches front to back. And again, that's because most standard stoves are about 23 inches or so back to front, and then 29.5 inches side to side. So this should fit perfectly right on top of pretty much any stove. All right, so simple enough, right? 2 easy cuts right there. Probably less than 2 minutes. Probably spend more time blabbering. All right, so another little bit of a piece of advice, right? So as we can see here, maybe, the wood grain kind of, arches that way. So what we want to do is when we're gluing or we're screwing or however it is that you want to clamp these together, to prevent the boards from going like this or like this, you alternate which way the arch in the grain goes, right? So if it's like this, then the next board that you put next to it, the grain needs to go like this. That will help prevent that bowing and whatnot. So we're gonna go ahead and get these clamped up, and then we'll be back out here tomorrow, and we'll go ahead and work on those side panels. All right, so now I got it all cut up, all right? I got a nice little bead of glue along this edge. I'm just using some Titebond 2. I know it says Titebond 3 on there, but it's Titebond 2. And we're just gonna use our one-of-a-kind glue spreader. Get a nice even coat all the way across. It gives us a good even gluing surface there. Fills in all the pores along the edge here. And then we just wipe that on our workbench, because why not? It's a workbench, meant to be dirty. And we'll get them all pressed together like so. Now on this, I am using some parallel clamps to help provide that pressure across. Now, if you don't have clamps, there's no need to fear. Right? There's a couple ways that you can get this glued up, right? Or put together. The first is, again, using some fancy glue. The second is buying a pocket hole jig, right? And it can be either super cheap, a bunch of companies make them. Craig is probably one that most people have heard of. But you can just put about 3 pocket holes into the underside of your noodle board base, right? The actual flat surface itself. The third way is we go ahead and make the side rails, and you'll screw the panel part of that into the bottom of the side rail from the bottom of the base, right? It's not as great, doesn't look as clean, but hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. You just gotta make sure that you, in all cases, you install the handles, especially if they screw from the bottom of the side of your handles. If they screw from the bottom, you definitely wanna make sure that those handles are installed first before you put them onto the noodle board. That goes for if you're gluing it up, using pocket holes, that. But if they glue from the top, by all means, nothing to worry about. You just screw them in once they're installed. But that's how this is. So like I said, we'll go ahead and let this dry up overnight. We'll go ahead and pre-sand it tomorrow, and then we'll go ahead and make the side rails tomorrow as well. But kind of a stopping point for the night. All right, so we let the base of the noodle board glue up overnight. It's nice and solid now. You can tell if you use glue when you kind of go to pick at some of the beads, they're like rock hard, as well as obviously it doesn't come apart. Now, you won't have to wait overnight if you use pocket hole screws, or if you plan on attaching the side rails just straight to the base itself, right? So what we gotta do now is sand, right? So with these types of things, I only sand to 120 grit. You can sand all the way up to 220 if you put a really nice finish on here. I recommend 220 if you're gonna put a polyurethane or polyacrylic coat on, and then 320 grit in between those polyacrylic kits. But for this, we're just gonna do a basic stain, so 120 grit is just fine. And then, yeah, so that's where we're at. So I'm gonna sand this down, rip it down to its final width, that 21.5 inches. And then the next thing I'm doing is we're actually engraving something. So if you don't have a laser engraver, that's perfectly all right, not a big deal. You can totally skip this step. This is just for a customer, and I'm having you guys follow along. So now that the base is done, you're gonna wanna sand this, because it's easier to sand it with the handrails off than it is to do it when the handrails are on. So now we're gonna sand this down, and then we'll rip it down to its final width, is at 21.5 inches. Yeah, that's where we are. All right, so not sure you can see this sweet little blue glow there in the back, right? So that is the base of the noodle board getting engraved right now. But again, if you don't have a laser engraver, then you don't have to worry about it. So let's talk these side rails. So for the side rails, you're gonna need a 21.5 inch long, 1x3, okay? Gives you a nice, good, solid thing, right? And so you'll need 2 of them. So got my 2 right here. Now you'll also need some cabinet hardware. Okay, so I bulk order mine off of Amazon, and they come with bolts that I have to trim down. But you can get yours from the local hardware store. Doesn't matter, but cabinet hardware works out pretty well. So I use the Craig cabinet jig, or cabinet hardware jig, to kind of line mine up. But if you don't have that, which I'm sure most of you probably don't, it's also fine. If you're only just building it for yourself, no need to get a tool that you don't need, right? You're just gonna take some painter's tape, okay? Tear a piece off. Make sure to actually take these things out of the wrapper. And then you're just gonna set it on here, on the bottom here. just like so. It will actually stick. Leave it to be in the middle of a video and this thing not want to stick. Okay, you want to make sure it's nice and taut. And then you just simply take drill bit, pencil, and you're going to poke a hole where the cabinet holes are. And so you'll just make sure it's nice and clean. Kind of roughly find the center here of this. It's a little easier for me to work horizontal. Yeah, that looks about right. Right? So then you just do that and you'll just drill your holes. But for this, I'm going to use my cabinet thing. Because if I have a tool, might as well use it, right? So get that kind of lined up, and then we'll just go through. Bing, bada, boom. All right. Good. And then on the back side, what I'm going to do is to let the bolts or the hardware for the handles here sink in or inset. I'm going to use a countersink bit. If you don't know what a countersink bit does, it essentially will drill the hole, but at the top of the hole, it will make it slightly larger, right? You see how it's kind of there? And if you flip it over, you see itty bitty little holes, right? So countersunk, not countersunk. What that allows is the nut to do is for the top is to sit down in there. So that's that. So I'm going to go ahead, get the second one done, get them both installed. Hopefully by the time that's done, the engraver will be done engraving it, and then we can get these attached to the base, and we will almost be there with your noodle board, right? So just stick with me a little longer, and we'll get this thing all knocked out. And I guarantee you, once you're finished with it, you're gonna be like, yep, this definitely improves the entire kitchen. Like, new centerpiece. It's gonna be awesome. Got the handles installed, right, on the side rails. So I was talking about the countersink, okay, that this is what the countersink allows it to do, right? See how they're nice and inset in there? And if you look over here, right, no screws. This allows the side rail to sit flat on the noodle board itself. So for me, I use my fancy glue, some clamps, to clamp the side rails down on here, okay? So I apply a liberal amount of glue, nice even surface, clamp it down, let it dry overnight. If you don't have wood glue, right, or you don't have glue or clamps at all, you just simply are going to attach the side rails themselves, right? So we've installed our handles first. You're just going to screw through the bottom of the base into the side rails themselves, right? And you'll just do that for both sides. I recommend, if you're going to do that, that you have at least 3 screws, so total of 6 for each side rail, right? So you're gonna have 2 here near the front, and then at least 1 closer towards the middle, right? This will give you a good even amount of pressure, and will also keep it from bowing and warping whenever it's being picked up and manhandled around the kitchen, okay? So I'm gonna get these glued on, clamped, and then after it's dried, the noodle board is pretty much done outside of finishing. So rather than showing you all the different finishing techniques and using this and doing this and wax on and wax off, I'm just gonna tell you, right? So if you're using pine, really it's good for any board if you want, because it also helps clean off some of the sawdust and stuff, is I recommend getting a pre-stained wood conditioner. So this is the Varathane pre-stained wood conditioner. It helps fill in the pores of the wood, especially on pine, which is very porous, and helps give you a nice even coat when you're staining. If you're not staining, then all you need to do is just make sure it's nice and clean, right? And for that, I like to use some mineral spirits to help clean off all that excess sawdust and everything. So you just use your mineral spirits, wipe it all down, and then apply your first coat of paint. Let that dry completely. Hit it with 220 in between. Apply your second coat of paint. Bing bada boom. Paint a noodle board. Definitely want to seal it though if you're using paint, because you don't want any chipping or scuffing or scratches or anything like that. So definitely want to seal it with some kind of polyurethane or polyacrylic. Okay. If you're staining, again, want to use wood conditioner. Helps provide a nice even stain. And yeah, so there you go. You have successfully or unsuccessfully, but it's still a success because hopefully you learned in the process of making a noodle board. And I'll show you what the finished one looks like for this tomorrow once the glue's dried and I've applied the stain and everything like that before I deliver it to the customer, just so you see what a finished product looks like. But yeah, pretty simple, right? So all you needed was at least a 6-foot board of both a 1x12 and a 1x3, 2 cabinet handles, some wood glue or screws, and boom, you have made a noodle board for your kitchen that will become a integral part of your home decor. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these glued and clamped, and once that's all dried and stained, I'll show you guys what it looks like in the morning. All right, so if you've been following along, right, up to this point, thank you so much. So this is what a finished noodle board will look like, right? So got a nice color on here, got our handles, our side rails, and our base. All right, done. And again, if you have a laser engraver, great, you can engrave stuff on here, or a vinyl maker, do that as well. So this one is just finishing up drying, and then it is done, and we're off to give it to the customer. But there you go. Just some tips with finishing, right? So if you are using stain, right, again, remember to use that wood pre-conditioner, the pre-stain conditioner, and then whatever stain you're using, you want to move the stain and apply it in the direction of the grain. That gives you that nice even coat on there. You want to avoid swirlies, right? Doing this number, right? Nice even strokes back and forth to get a good even finish on here. I appreciate everybody's time and following along with this video. Hopefully you have been building it as you watch this, as you go, kind of pausing at certain segments. If you have any questions or confusion about any of the steps that you are building, make sure you leave a comment. I answer every comment that I have. And if you like this kind of content, make sure that you like and subscribe this video, and I'll be sure to keep on doing these things, and we'll have plenty of woodworking and DIY adventures. If there's anything that you'd like to see built, also leave those in a comment, and we'll be sure to take those in consideration for any new videos that I come up with. Again, thanks for following along. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.